I did not watch The Blind Side, but The Blind Side was a movie that was starring Sandra Bullock, and it depicted a young man that basically was adopted by a family that ultimately made it into the NFL, right? And like all good things, it must come to an end. But this man, Mike, is now suing over a fake adoption. Now you got to remember, I don't know if you guys ever watched The Blind Side. I don't know if you're ever familiar with this, but a lot of people were on the fence about it because it was depicted as a true story in which there was a lot of truth to it. But you know how movies are; they have to sensationalize it in order to make it entertaining for you. But B, people don't like the idea that it was a big, strong, buck black man that was allegedly adopted into a family, a wealthy family, like as at that that ultimately helped for him to become successful. But this man is now coming back and suing and saying that he's suing based off of the idea that he thought that he was adopted, but he really wasn't. And he doesn't like it. So make sure y'all hit a like for the YouTube algorithm, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications. Let's rock.
A former football star, an Oscar-winning movie, and millions of dollars, as the man whose story inspired the Blind Side movie is now accusing the wealthy white family who said they adopted him of not doing any such thing. We're talking about Michael Oher, who was taken in by the Tuohys after living in poverty and foster care.
I have not seen this clip, right? I have not seen it at all, but I know that you guys sent it to me, and it's a story that's now becoming a thing. Living in foster care, poverty in foster care, ultimately took you into their home, gave you extra tools that you need in order to be comfortable and ultimately make it into the NFL, help you get through college, was there for you. Now you guys got to remember, some people will say, well, why would they do that, right? They came up off of him. They wind up getting the bag from him as a result of it. Well, there's more to the story, but what a lot of people don't understand is that the father, the man, the guy that's at the bottom, the white man that's at the bottom right there, the woman is ultimately the one that got all of the accolades because she was depicted by Sandra Bullock. The father actually sold all of his franchises, and he was rich before this man ever before they ever even allegedly adopted him in the first place. And he allegedly sold his businesses to the tune of $200 million. So no matter whether he made it into the NFL or whether they made a movie or not, the family was already wealthy and well off. Let me say that again. A lot of people don't understand the backstory. The father and the family wind up selling their franchises and made over $200 million before even coming into this guy's life. So ultimately, they seen him as somebody that they could add value into his life. And he was living in foster care and he was in poverty. And then allegedly, they wind up taking him in. But we gonna get there.
He played college ball at Ole Miss before spending 8 years in the NFL. It's an incredible life story, so incredible that it was turned into a best-selling book. That book became the foundation of the 2009 movie, The Blind Side, that earned Sandra Bullock an Academy Award, remember?
This team is your family, Michael. When you look at him, you think of me, how you have my back. Are you going to protect the family, Michael?
Yes, ma'am.
Bullock plays Leanne Toohey, who adopted Oher, or so he thought. But according to these new court documents out of Tennessee, Oher says that's a lie, that they tricked him into making the family his conservators instead, and that they made millions off his name from a movie that, you see the quote here, that would not have existed without him.
You know what this sounds like? Either somebody is having money problems. It sounds like either he's having money problems or somehow, some way they must have got into an argument and fell out. And now he's feeling some type of way about it. Because nobody said anything for the 8 years that he was in the NFL, when they made the movie depicting his life, when he became a best-selling author and he kept 100% of the profits and the proceeds from the books that he sold. It was no problems. It was no problem when he wound up coming into their household and then they brought him in there or whatever, so on and so forth. It was no problem whatsoever when he was benefiting, right? But now in 2023, he's saying that he wants to sue them and that the conservatorship, because he's had this conservatorship for his entire adult life. His entire adult life, this conservatorship has been in place and he's never complained about it before. But now he's saying that it's unnecessary and he want to handle his own affairs and it wouldn't have existed. They would not have existed without him. Now remember, this is a family that had sold their franchises and their businesses to the tune of $200 million in profits. And they were already rich and well off. And then they wound up pulling them out of poverty and in foster care. And then they wound up making a best-selling movie as a result of it later on. All right, so let's continue. I'm going to be reading this super chat shortly.
Guad Venegas is joining us now. And Guad, this is a real shocker of a lawsuit, partly because of the time that has elapsed since Michael Oher was living with the Tuohys, was being taken in by the Tuohys, and now, right? He's basically saying he made nothing from the movie, from the book, et cetera, while the Tuohys raked it in. Help us understand the allegations and any response we're getting tonight from the Tuohys.
Hallie, there are a lot of questions as to why so much time went by before these legal documents were presented in court, right? So here's what we know. We know that back in 2004, when Oher was 18 years old and still living with the Tuohys, he says he was lied to, according to these legal documents, when they asked him to sign paperwork that he thought meant he was being adopted and becoming part of the family, but instead that paperwork put him in a conservatorship, and they became his conservators. Now, he says that they also made a deal for the film, the famous film that we all know, in which the family received $225,000 plus 2.5% of the proceeds. Now, that film also, the legal documents indicate, has made more than $300 million. Now, it also says that the conservatorship was going to end when he was 25, but the legal documents say that it was never terminated by the court, and ultimately the Tuohys had control over his contracts and any legal documents that he was involved in. So there's a lot of questions.
So let me back that up. Let me read that for the people. This is his allegations. Doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean that it's untrue. But these are the allegations that's being levied against the family that ultimately took him in, right? Now remember, he was a best-selling author. He made a lot of money off of his books. He played it in the NFL for 8 years. And then ultimately they made a movie depicting his life. He said that he made no money off the film. Sounds like the money getting low. They received $225,000 plus 2.5% of the proceeds. This is what he's alleging, right? He has to prove this. They placed him under a conservatorship, not an adoption. I don't really know what the difference is, but we can deep dive into it. He said that the conservatorship was never terminated when he was 25. So it doesn't prevent him from getting 100% of the monies, his NFL contracts or whatever, so on and so forth. But it's saying that ultimately they have control over his contracts, okay? We're going to get to it. We're going to get into it.
His contracts and any legal documents that he was involved in. So there's a lot of questions, Hallie, as to how he's been under a conservatorship this entire time, right? Because he had a successful NFL career.
Now, remember, somebody is saying, right, but the family only made 2.5% of the $300 million. That's not true. The film grossed $300 million, right? So you actually have to take out the amount of money that it takes to make the film, pay the actors, market the product, print up the whatever, split the profits, whatever the movie houses are, so on and so forth, right? So the profitability. Now, this is what's being alleged. Now, the father got a completely different story, right? So the profits of the movie is not based off of how much that the movie gross. How much the movie gross versus what the profits are is different. So let's say, for example, if the actual film had made 50 million after profits, right? Or 100 million, right? Now you're talking about 1.25 or you're talking about $2.5 million off of a $100 million movie that we didn't even know whether it was going to be successful when they made it and invested money into it, right? But again, this is what's being alleged, and the father and the family got a completely different conversation. But we're going to get to that in a second.
But it's been indicated that it took him time to find out exactly what had happened and why he didn't receive any profits from this film. So there's a lot of questions that will be answered after this legal filing was.
Somebody said, I'm trying to understand why the F this enormous black man might have possibly thought he needed to be adopted by this tiny white family in the first place. It don't look right. Well, he was living in poverty and they adopted him when he was in high school and he was in foster care. So they got him, or they got to him, or they adopted him, or they took conservatorship over him at a time when he was living in abject poverty. What do you mean why he needed him? Because he was fucked up. And he still needed to survive through college. He still needed to be able to be fed. He still needed to be able to get on the team. He still needed to be able to be taken care of all the way up until the point that he got into the NFL. That's why he needed him. Just because you big don't mean that he knew how to provide for himself.
Put in court today. So this is the legal petition, but we still have to hear from the Tuohys. We have not heard a response from them. So in the coming weeks or months, we could see a legal filing coming from the family explaining from their point of view what happened.
What does Oher want the court to do now? Like, what is he seeking?
So first off, the legal petition indicates that he wants that conservatorship to end. Again, this would have started when he was 18. He is now 37. He's retired from a successful NFL.
So now you're 37 and you just now starting to okay, wait. At 37 years old, the conservatorship started at 18. 20 years later, 19, 20 years later, now you want to have a conversation about what it is that you don't like. Come on. Honestly, to me, on the outside looking in, just observing what's happening, and I'm going to break down what the father says because a lot of times the news only want to paint one side of the story. We know how it goes. This sounds a little fishy. It sounds like some money problems is happening somewhere in there.
Career. So he wants that to end. And also he's asking that the family, the Tuohys, stop using his name and likeness and also to pay him his fair share from the profits they could have made from using his name, Hallie.
Squad Venegas, thank you very much.
So let me share with you what the family is saying. They got a completely different perspective, right? Let's scroll down because we already know what his allegations are. Retired, depicted the movie 2009. He wants them to stop using his name and to pay their fair share. All right, this is what he's saying. They're accused of using that power to negotiate a deal that made them, including their two birth children, millions of dollars in royalties from the Oscar-winning film. They began negotiating a movie deal about the relationship shortly after the 2006 release of the book The Blind Side, Evolution of the Game, according to the film. Family members were allegedly paid $225,000 plus 2.5% of the film's proceeds. The film earned more than $300 million. All right, so that's what's being alleged, right? Alleged, meaning that he doesn't really know, but this is what he's assuming. An additional 2007 contract allegedly gave 20th Century Fox Studios the rights to his story without any payment. According to the filing, he alleges that he doesn't recall signing any such contract and was misled to think he was agreeing to something else. All right, so this is where the real fallout happened, and then you know what happens. You start deep diving into the money and to say, hey, you owe me some money. He's saying in his senior year in high school was when he signed the papers, hoping that the family he thought cared for him, an experience he detailed in his 2011 best-selling memoir, I Beat the Odds. So he released a second book, and he sold a lot of copies of that too. He said, it explained to me that it pretty much means the exact same thing as adoptive parents, but the laws were written in a way that took my age into account. That's what he said it was explained to him. He reportedly continued his life under that impression until he retired from the NFL in 2016. So in 2016, he had an 8-year run. He made a lot of money. He had best-selling books. He did 2 books at least that sold a lot. Offensive tackle was drafted with the Baltimore Ravens, whatever, blah, blah, blah. All right, so the adoption, whatever. I want to get down to the meat of this, all right? He's saying that while he was learning about the alleged funds, now at 37 years old, he's starting to figure it all out and put it together, right? Withheld and a fake adoption was major blows. He said the film filing claims that his issues with the family began due to how he was portrayed as unintelligent in the movie. So this is where the problems began. Issues with the Tuohy family began due to how he was portrayed as unintelligent in the movie. So he felt some type of way about how the movie was sensationalized. He said that I'm really more intelligent than that, but this is how it began, and I didn't like the fact that I was portrayed as that in the movie, right? He said, I'm not trying to prove anything. People look at me and they take things away from me because of a movie. They don't really see the skills and the kind of player that I am. That's why I get downgraded so much because of something off of the field. That's what he wrote. He wrote in his next book, all right? He said, there has been so much created from the blind side that I am grateful for, which is why you might find it as a shock that the experience surrounding the story has also been a large source of some of my deepest hurt and pain over the past 14 years. Sound like he got somebody in his ear. Either it's some money problems, he got somebody in his ear, or it's a combination of both. I'm going to be reading that super chat shortly. Thank you. I appreciate you. All right. So he benefited from it. And now he's saying that this is some of my deepest, darkest pain. He probably got some therapy. He probably was listening to some baby mama on YouTube, and this is how he feels about it. All right. Let's get down to what the father says. The father said that the family is devastated. He spoke to the Daily Memphian's Geoff Calkins on Monday afternoon, and he said that the family are devastating after seeing the reports. He says it's upsetting to think we would make money off of any of our children, but we're going to love Michael at 37 the way we loved him at 16. So the father is saying, yo, we love this dude, and I can't believe that he turning on us. We don't know what the fuck is going on. We don't know if he got money problems. We don't know if he's finessing. We don't know what the issue is, but we still got love for him because you just don't turn love off from somebody that you've been in their life for over 20 years, right? He said, Sean, now this is the father. The father sold most of his fast food franchises for more than $200 million and also insisted that the money that they made from the blind side was minimal and split equally. This is why you need two sides to the story. Because the father said that, yo, we was already fucking bag chasers. We was already rich before you came in this thing. We took you in. We took you in. And this is why I keep telling guys that y'all have to be careful about the people that y'all let into your lives. It doesn't pay whether you're marrying a woman that's a single baby mama or you bringing in a dude that is a foster care kid that was fucked up and now you got to fix his life, right? You came into, how many people would love to come into a household that has a net worth of allegedly over $200 million? And now 20 years later, after you benefited from our greatness, in a situation that we put you in, you want to turn against us. It goes on. Here, it gets better. He says, we didn't make any money off the movie. Michael Lewis, the author of the book Blindside, gave us half of his share. Everybody in the family got an equal share, including Michael. It was about $14,000 each. $14,000 each. He said, including Michael, we all split it because we wasn't making no money from it. The author of the book gave us a piece of his share. We busted down equally and it came up to $14,000 each. He said, we were never offered money. We never asked for money. My money is well documented. He said, I'm already a bag chaser. I'm already $100 millionaire. Somebody said they adopted him to make a bag off of him. How, when he was already filthy fucking rich? Let me scroll back up to you. Sean, who reportedly sold most of his fast food franchises for more than $200 million, said it wasn't even about the money. It's documented. How are they trying to come up off of him when they was already fucking 100 millionaires before he came into the picture? It's documented. Let's continue. He said, as for the conservatorship, Sean said that he would, of course, be willing to end it. He said, listen, if you want to take over your own fucking life, I don't care. All you got to do is tell me. You ain't got to go to the media about it. He said, we'll end it. The only reason they did it in the first place because that was the only option. He said, while he's not happy to be defending himself, and he admitted that he felt a little distance in the relationship, about 18 months ago, he's willing to do whatever it is that he wants. He said it's hard because you have to defend yourself, but whatever he wants, we'll do. We're not in this for anything other than whatever it is that he wants. If he would have said, I don't want to be a part of the family anymore, we'd have been very upset, but we absolutely would have did it. No questions. The allegations are insulting, but look, it's a crazy world. You got to live in it. And obviously it's obviously upset everybody. So he's saying, listen, you already know what my bag is. You already know what my bag is. I already got money. Look, he said, we were never offered money. We never asked for money. My money is well documented. He said, you better check my motherfucking resume. He said, the father said, my money is well documented. You can look it up how much I sold my company for. The last thing I needed was $40,000 from a motherfucking movie. He said, the last thing I needed, let me highlight that for y'all in the back. My money is well documented. You can look up how much I sold my company for. The last thing I needed was 40 bands from a motherfucking movie. I don't know what is going on. I know that man, and based off of my research, that he really did sell his company allegedly for over $200 million. His franchises before that kid came into the picture, right? I know that the boy is now, after 20 years, at 37 years old, is saying that, listen, I want to take my own life back. I want my own conservatorship. They say, yeah, all you had to do was say something and we'd have gave you what the fuck you wanted. I know that it's always two sides to the story. And so I'm going to be on it. I'm going to be paying attention to it. I'm going to be following it. But the fact of the matter is, you can't just take people's word at what it is when there's somebody else on the other end of that equation that hasn't told their part of the story yet. We can't jump to conclusions and say, oh man, well, they did this, or he did that. You got to look at it holistically, because when I even see these women jump on these panels, they say, well, he wasn't no good and he did this and he did that. I know that if we ask that guy, it's going to be a completely different conversation. It's going to be a completely different conversation. But I'm going to focus on it. I'm going to keep paying attention to it. And here's my question. Why didn't he actually communicate with the family after their relationship got strange and they started getting distant over 18 months ago? Because it wasn't tripping until over 18 months ago. Then he started saying, you know what? I don't like the fact that y'all using my likeness. Why over these last few years, over the last couple of years, now you starting to feel away? Here's my other question. Is it more important, regardless of who's right and who's wrong? Is it more important that you just completely separate it? And is there a bigger message in this, in that you should not be looking to get involved in anybody else's life? Fuck them kids. Leave them in foster care. What if they would have just stayed as a family and did their own fucking thing, never even did a conservatorship or some form of adoption in the first place, and let him stay in his whole foster care system? Do you think he would have A, been as successful, and B, do you think that the family would have been fine without him, even though they had already had all of his money? What's the point? And this is the thing that I keep having a dilemma with, is people keep telling people that they need to give up their money or they need to spend their time helping other people go back to the hood and do all of this shit. Well, what's the point? If at the end of the rainbow, somebody can come back and accuse you of something without actually filing a lawsuit, without actually communicating with you on what it is that they want before they go out to the media, if at the end of the day, I'm already fucking up, I'm already straight, I don't need you, the little bag that they giving me as a result of dealing with you, if I even got it in the first place, what's the point? Would the father and the family would have been straight if they'd have never met that motherfucker in the first place? A. And then B, what would have been made of him because y'all keep saying that other people came up off of him? I believe that there are other people that are in other people's ear that is playing a role. This could have been solved with a simple conversation between them two, but I think that it's something that's dividing them, and it's another part of the piece of the puzzle that we're not familiar with yet. But I'm going to keep my eye on it. I'm going to see what's happening. So that's what's going on with the depiction of the star that was in The Blind Side, all right?